What's up, guys? Welcome back. I am here with my friend Daniel Laskewitz, and we are here to talk about a big announcement. Laskewitz, what is the announcement for today?
We're going to talk about WinAutomation.
WinAutomation, Microsoft Flow, Power Automate's latest, newest, most awesome acquisition. We are bringing in a brand new set of capabilities and features that WinAutomation has had now. They have a great product. If you haven't seen it, you're in luck because we're going to show you today. I brought Laskewitz on because, as usual, he's at the forefront of all the newest stuff. I saw him making videos about WinAutomation already on his own channel, and I was like, yo, you got to come and show the peeps on my channel what's happening, and he agreed. So Laskewitz, without further ado, by now the people know you. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you. Do a quick intro and then go ahead and jump in, man, and talk to us all about WinAutomation.
So we're going to talk about WinAutomation today, and as you know, WinAutomation was recently acquired, or the company that owns WinAutomation has recently been acquired by Microsoft, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to talk about me first. So let's start with a little bit about myself. My name is Daniel Laskewitz. I'm Power Platform Lead at Society. I'm the founder of the Dutch Power Apps and Flow user group. Yeah, we still call it Flow. What do you think of that, John?
Long live Flow. Long live Flow.
Yeah, but it's kind of, if you look at the shorthand, it's DPAFUG, and if we were going to change it, it's going to be DPAPAG. So the Papa G or something, it's going to be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also host a show together with Sandy Yusha, and that's the Flow Pro Show. Also not going to change that.
and if you haven't seen it, go check out the latest episode. They just did an interview with Charles Lamanna, CVP of BizApps. It was fantastic. He had some radical candor. He got really open and honest, and he did his best to answer every hard question. And so definitely go and check that out. You don't want to miss that episode.
Sure. Well, now let's dive in, because I really want to show the tool.
Let's do it.
First, let's talk a little bit about the announcement. The blog post was on the Power Automate blog. It was written by Charles Lamanna. And he announced that Microsoft acquired Softomotive, and that's the creator of WinAutomation. And Microsoft acquired them last week. Just before Build, they announced it.
Yep.
And you can read the whole blog post if you go to the URL on the slide. So make sure to read that. Yeah. So WinAutomation will be integrated into Power Automate, of course, because now it's a separate tool. You can already trigger the WinAutomation processes that you create, but you need to do that through the current UI flows, the desktop version, and it's kind of a loophole because you're kind of running a UI flow to trigger WinAutomation RPA bot. So it's kind of a really strange kind of thing, and it takes a big detour to really go there.
Daisy chaining RPA tools.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So but I'm sure that the Power Automate team is already working really hard on the native actions, and I believe they will come really soon. So I don't know the exact date, but I believe that they will be there in 1 to 2 months probably. So it will happen. And also one really big thing is, of course, the current UI flows. What's going to happen with those? Because they acquired WinAutomation, and what's WinAutomation going to do, and what's UI flows going to do?
Yeah, they're going to be integrated together. They won't replace each other. It'll be
exactly.
Both. It's and is always better than or.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What they say in the blog post, you can build RPA bots with the existing browser-based offering app. So I think that there's going to be a little bit of a split between the UI flows that are there now. And you can also create new processes with the desktop app with WinAutomation. So I believe that UI flows is going to be split. You always had desktop and web. Web is going to be UI flows, and desktop is going to be WinAutomation. So there is something changing. but of course, WinAutomation has been there for years already. So Microsoft can't build that fast to recreate that tool as well. So that's also why they acquired it, of course.
Well, I'm just going to say officially, this is all Laskewitz guessing. I can neither confirm nor deny anything being said here.
Of course. So let's talk a little bit about the tool. So when you install WinAutomation, you get a WinAutomation console. And when you open that, you can already see a lot of examples. You can see that here in the app. So if you go to the left side of your screen, you can see my processes, and there is going to be examples in there. I created demo and John demo, so those two are mine, but the rest of the examples are there when you start after you installed, actually. So for instance, I have here the beginner folder, and in there I have run calculator, open a folder, open a web page, print a document. There's all kinds of processes already there. And there's also some intermediate and advanced ones. So these are also really nice. So please start with beginner if you don't have any experience with RPA. And if you already have one, you can, of course, start with the advanced one, or you will browse through the beginner and intermediate ones really easily.
That's really
and there's, that's really nice.
Yeah, I love how they include those examples like that. That's so handy.
Yeah, it's almost like templates in Flow, right? Or Power Automate, sorry.
Yeah.
Still make the mistake, man.
That's all right. Hey, we're still building flows in Power
Exactly.
Automate, so it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So, it's almost like it's templates. So that's really cool.
Totally.
There's also some other folders here. So you have web automation, logical operators, Excel, SQL with Excel. And those are more examples that are only for those type of scenarios. So you have the level type of examples, but you also have the theming kind of thing. So they're based on a theme. So that's also a really good one.
Nice.
So when you open, for instance, the run calculator process, you will get into the process designer. And the process designer, it exists of an action panel, and those are all actions that are available. And this is not all, because it's based off folders. So there's lots of folders here. You can almost look at them like every folder is a connector in here. So you have a system connector, you have conditionals, you have loops, you have wait, you have all kinds of things, but you also have, for instance, compression. That's one of the folders here. That's to zip a file or unzip a file. Nice. Those kinds of things are in here as well. And files and folders are also really interesting, because then you can work together with files and folders, of course. So you can, for instance, get a folder, get all the files in that folder, and then look through those files. There are tons of scenarios where, for instance, you have a really, you have a server or something where you have a directory where some kind of process is writing an Excel file to, or a CSV file, or whatever. And those kinds of things are really nice to handle with files and folders, for instance.
And there's PDF actions. There's an FTP server.
Yeah, the PDF actions, I really like those, because it's also nice. you can merge PDFs. Ooh. And you can split them, and you can create new PDFs and those kinds of things. And one that I really like is the OCR one. Oh, so OCR is really cool, because you can start an OCR engine, and that OCR engine can look at text on the screen. Amazing. So whenever some text is on the screen, for instance, from an email or something, you can go there and copy paste the whole thing behind that, for instance. So those kinds of things are possible as well. Yeah, and there are tons of others that I'm not going to talk about now.
Yep.
So let's move on to the next part, cool. And that's the steps that you have within your WinAutomation process. So you can see the text main here, and main is the standard function you get whenever you create a new process. And of course, here you see the functions panel. You can have multiple of them, but in this case we only have one, and that's the main function. And a function always contains steps. So it's this one contains only 3 steps. It has a message box which will appear whenever this action gets run. Then it runs an application, and that's in this case the calculator, because it's the run calculator process. So that kind of makes sense. And then after that, it also shows another message box, so another pop-up where you can put some text in, and in this case it will show example completed, example run calculator completed, for instance.
You can customize that.
Yeah, you can customize that. It's really nice to work with that, and it's really easy to work with. Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
So yeah, that's really nice to work with. And in this case, it's only a display message box with an OK button in there, but you can also choose your different buttons. So nice. For instance, you can also add a message box with cancel and OK, for instance, or something else.
I would just want to make my success message great success.
Great success. Pretty cool. Okay, so I already talked a little bit about this panel. That's the functions panel. You can, of course, create a new function, delete a function, rename it, edit it, do all kinds of things with that. And those functions are really easy if you want to, for instance, split up your process. So this panel with all the actions can be really, really big, because I tried a process in one of my videos and it was about 50 actions. Wow. I always like to group them in certain groups so that I have a better overview of what's happening in my process. So that's something about functions. You also have variables in here. So in this case, we don't have a lot of variables, but in the demo I'm going to do later, we also have variables, and variables are really nice to, of course, save a text to, or a number or something like that. And then you can, of course, set that later on. One big other thing is also the controls repository, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in my demo, because I'm going to show you how that works as well. So talking about the demo, let's start with the demo. I'm going to use this application in this demo, and this is an application where you can enter email address, search for all the customers you have. So when I enter an email address here, for instance, adixon@litware.com, I can search for it, and then only Adixon will show up in this panel. I can switch to the order history, for instance, and I can see what Andrew Dixon ordered at my company.
Okay.
And when I'm in that order history, I can also create a new order and fill in some details in there. And that's what we're going to automate in this WinAutomation process.
Okay.
So let me switch to the application. So I hope you can see this correctly.
I do.
Okay. So I have a folder here, John Demo, in my folders with all the processes. I already have the finished one, but I'm not going to show you that first. So let's select the order entry and double click on that. Double click next to it. And there we are. So I already prepared a couple of actions.
Okay.
So in here I have some variables that I set at the beginning of my process. And that's because normally I would integrate this whole process within Power Automate. I would get data from maybe a Power App, maybe a virtual agent, maybe I would just get it from a SharePoint list or something else. I can get it from everywhere. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I just want to show you how to design your own RPA bot. Yep. Okay. And we're going to come back later with a video. We already talked about it. In a couple of weeks, we're going to record that, or whenever the actions come out. And when those actions come out, the native actions for WinAutomation in Power Automate, we can come back to this process and then start from a Power App or from something else.
Yeah, so show you how it all connects.
Yeah.
Start at a Power App, move the data through with Power Automate to trigger a WinAutomation.
Exactly. That's what we're going to build on. Cool. But in this case, I just set the variable, and that's my user email. I'm setting a variable which is contact email. So that's in this case adixon@litware.com. That's the example I already used. Yep. I'm setting a variable called item to a monitor 27-inch. I'm setting the quantity to 20. So I'm going to order 20 monitors of 27 inch. I get the current date and time from the local machine. That's really important. So it's always getting the date and time from the current machine. When I open this up, I can also see that I can switch between date and time and only date, for instance. Systems time zone or a specific time zone, but in this case I'm using the systems time zone. And of course I can use an output. So an output variable can be current date time in this case. I can change that to something else, but for now I'm going to leave it with that. After that I have an add to date time action. And here I'm going to add 7 days to the current date time. And I'm going to add that to the variable called target ship date. It's a really slow company that I have.
I was going to say 7 days. Man, I'm hoping you turn that around in like 24 hours, maybe 3 days max. Jeez.
I just realized that. I just added it. So for now, I can just leave it with that. And then, of course, I need to have a date time in a certain specific text kind of look and feel, so a certain format. And that's why I need to convert datetime to text action. And I get the target ship date that I got from the add to datetime action. Then I'm going to use standard format and I'm using the short date. And you can already see an example of that. And then it will output that date that you can see here. It will output that to the target ship date formatted. So that's the one I want. And after that, I do nothing right now.
Okay.
But I can add actions here. But in this case, I also want to show you how you can use functions, because the functions are really important in these kinds of processes, because it makes it a lot better overview for you. So let's add another function. I'm going to call this add order. And there I have no actions in here yet. So I need to start with an action. So what do we want to start with when we want to add the order? We only have all the inputs right now, so all the inputs that we need, but we need, of course, to start the application. So I'm just going to type in the search bar Apple, and it already has the run application action. I can select the application path, for instance. So I can select a file of the application I want to open. And in this case, I'm going to do that and select this .exe file, the application, and I'm going to open that. I can add some command line arguments, for instance. I can use a working folder, all kinds of stuff. I can also, after application launch, I can continue immediately, or I can wait for the application to load. I'm going to do that in this case. And I'm going to leave this like it is. You can, of course, if you work with multiple apps, it's easy to, for instance, fill in the app name in here. So Contoso Electronics is the name. So I can use it like that. It doesn't really matter how you name this, as long as when you close the app, you want to, of course, make sure that you close this process.
I'm just over here still appreciating the fact that you called an exe an exa.
Oh, sorry, man. EXE. Yeah, we Dutch people always like to call it differently. I know. Okay, so now let's open the app, because I want to see what we need to do when we open the app, of course. So let's switch back. And now I want to, of course, create a new action. And for this action, we're going to use, hold on if I can find it easily. Oh, where is my panel? Oh, here it is. Sorry. So I can use something from the controls repository, and I already have a lot of controls in there. But for now, we haven't used any, this because I already prepared this. But when I click remove unused controls, and those are all the controls that I have right now, it will just remove all those controls. So we start from scratch now. I can select add control, and when I do that, I can look at the screen and I can hold control and select the input field that's next to the E address, and then it will already register the text box that's in here. So for now, of course, I don't want to have the added text box in there, but for now I'm going to leave it like that because I want to select more controls. So I'll just rename them a little bit later because I always think that's more pretty. So let's add another control and select control and the search button. And now you can see that it took the search button. It also has a screenshot in there, so it's almost like the same stuff that you know from UI flows already. But for now, I can just, for instance, rename this and call this the input email address. And the search is, of course, a button. So I always use shorthands for that. So button is BTN, for instance, BTN search.
No, I thought button was BTTN.
Yeah, I can do that as well, but I'm lazy. Always as few typing as possible. You know me. So yeah, I already have these controls in there now, and of course we want to have multiple stuff in here because I want to select the order history. So let's add that one as well, because that's going to be the next step. So after we searched for a client, we already have the client. We want to open the order history. So let's select that one as well. BTN order history. And when we are at the order history, we of course want to create a new order. So let's do that as well. So add control, I'm going to select a new order button, and then I can put a button new order. And when I selected new order, I can of course add the target ship date. So let's add that as another control. So we have the target ship date here. That's an input. And then we want another one, and that's the item. So select item, and that's the input item. And we're almost there. We are going to use the quantity. So, oh, I didn't select that one. Now I did. So input quantity. And we're going to do some stuff to that because quantity is the only field that's not blank. So whenever I would have the 0 here, for instance, and I would click there, I of course don't want to have to correct that. So we are gonna do something with keystrokes to actually select all of it and then go type, so that we make sure that the value is actually empty, because we don't want to order 10 instead of 1, for instance.
Yep.
So that's an interesting one. The next one is of course going to be the notes, because I also want to add a note there. And that's really handy to, for instance, say to people that input, the notes input has been done by an automated process, so that we can always find back who did it. So let's call it input notes. And the last action that we are going to do is of course save the order, and that's something we need to select as well. So I hit Control again, and I click the button, btn save. So now we have all the things in here that we need to have. But now we need to tell the process that it needs to select those things. So we go into mouse and keyboard, and we of course need to have the keys in here. That's one of the actions we need. So let's just put that in there. It shows a cross already because I didn't configure this one. And let me see, what was the other one? This one. Click element in window. That's the one we need as well. And from this one, we can, for instance, select a control from the repository and select which type of click we want, for instance. And in this case, we're going to use the input email address, for instance. Click OK, and then I can move this up because that's our first action. We want to select the email address here. We want to type in the email address. So if I go back to my process, I can see the email address, the contact email we want to use. So we want to do that with the send keys one. So in here, I can use a button here, a gear icon, and when I select that, I will get all the variables that are available.
Nice.
So in here, I can select the contact email, and I can even expand this, and I can also get more info about that variable. Nice. So it automatically also gives you a lot of more information. For instance, the length of a text, if you want to have that. So you can, for instance, put an if condition in front of that. If you have an old school application that only can handle a certain amount of characters or something like that. That's something you can catch before you enter that with that dot length variable part. But in this case, we're just going to use the contact email and select OK. And then, of course, we need to do a lot more. So I'm going to add a couple more here. We also need to do another one of these because after the email address, we need to select the search button. So let's select that one and click Add and click OK again. After that, we want to click another element because we need to go to the order history in here. And I really like the fact that we already created all those controls because it makes it so much easier to first select all the different controls, add them to your control repository, and then configure the whole flow, the whole process. So that's really really important as well because that makes it way easier for you to do. So select OK, select another OK. We still haven't reached an input field, so I'm gonna copy another element here, and in here we want to select the new order because that's the next one. We selected order history, then new order, and we need another one in here. So it's a lot of different actions, and this is also the point I tried to make earlier on in my presentation when I talked about functions. You can see how many actions there can be in a process. Yeah. And you probably want to make sure that you don't have too many in there because it's going to be a little bit too much for people to know what's happening in the whole process. So if you have multiple functions, it's probably really way better to overview it.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, so new order was the last one. Then we want to go to the input target ship date. And then we can finally add the send keys again. So in here, I'm going to remove the earlier variable, and I'm going to use the target ship date formatted. So let's use that one and select OK. Then we need this one again, and we can select a different one because we need the item in here. We need to send items in here. So I can remove this again and select the item that
This is easy. This is really easy. I mean, it once you understand how to set it up, it becomes quite an easy process. I think
Exactly.
if you're looking at this for the first time, you might be confused, but seeing how you built that control repository, I think really does make this now quite an easy process to just stitch this to this, this to this, this to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you are at the quantity, we already talked about that a little bit. We wanted to click that, and then we wanted to do something special, right? Because what we do so far is just adding some keys to a certain input box. Yep. But in this case, we want to do a shortcut. We want to do Control A in this case. So let me remove the item, and there are some buttons in here. So you can insert special keys, and that's all kinds of things in here. And you can insert a modifier, and you can see lots of these as well. So in this case, I'm going to use Control, and it automatically gives you Control plus 2 brackets in here. So if you look at the little eye on the side, there's lots of information in the tool itself. So make sure to use it. If you hover on the eye, you can see at the right side that Control is under Insert Modifier, and Control A, for example, needs to appear in the form, and then you can see Control and then A with curly brackets and normal brackets around it. So in this case, I need to add curly brackets in between and capital A. That's really important as well, because you need to do it as capital. So that's also one of the items that you see here in that info in this info screen.
Okay.
So when we added the Control A, we're not there yet, because we also want to add the quantity, of course. That's also a variable. So in this case, you can just add that behind the Control A, and then you can select OK. And that's it, to make sure that you select all the text and add another text.
Nice.
So that's really easy. And let's see what we didn't do yet. Input notes, of course. We didn't have a variable for that. So I'm going to add that by hand, because that's also possible. You can enter a text here. This item or this order has been added through an automated process. And then you can just select OK. And then it will add that into the notes.
It's a good warning.
Yeah, that's good to see if somebody has added that. And of course, when you are working with an app, for instance, a Power App, you can include the user that has saved, for instance, that order in that Power App.
Yep.
So that's really nice. I would change this to this order has been added by person A, for instance. So that's something you can of course replace them. But for now, I'm going to use it with a static text. I need to select another control in here because we didn't save it yet. So in this case, we are going to save it, and then we're done. Normally, I would add another action. So I would close window, for instance, as an action. And then in there, you can select control from repository again, and you can just select the window Contoso Electronics. And then it will close the window after the process is done.
Nice.
And I don't want to do that right now because I want to show you that it really worked.
Yeah.
And if I close it, it will delete the input again because it's a sample app, and it's just to show that we can enter data, but it didn't actually save it to a database. So that's something that we want to skip here. And now I also want to show a different action as well, or at least a nice feature that we have that we don't have in Flow right now, or Power Automate again. But you can disable actions here. So I don't want to delete this because I want to use it later on. So I'm going to disable this. And now if I want to demo this, I can just run this process, and then I can see it works, but it doesn't close the window of this app.
Got it.
So let's close this app right now and see what happens if I select start here. So when I hit, I forgot one big thing, by the way, because it's now not doing anything. I need to run the function, of course. That's something I didn't do yet because the function wasn't there yet, but I used the run function action and I can select one of my functions in here.
Wow.
In this case, it only shows add order because we are already in the main function, and the add order is the only other one. If we have multiple of them, we can, of course, use the drop down to select whatever we want in this case. So let's select OK. And what we also can do just for fun is do a display message as the last one. Your process has finished and great success. I like that one.
Yes.
What we can do here is also add a message box icon. So we can add the information one, the question one, so that you get a question mark, a warning with an exclamation mark or an error. In this case, I'm going to use the information one. I already talked about the buttons, so you can add multiple buttons, but in this case, we're just going to use OK here. And you can also use a default button if you have multiple options. So if you have OK and cancel and you want to have cancel as the default button, you can do that as well. But in this case, we're just going to use OK and first button. And yeah, that's about it. You can also, if you want to use this display message a little bit more with the other buttons as well, you can also have an output and then do something based on that output. So if somebody has selected OK or cancel, that you have different outcomes there.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're ready to try this.
Let's run it. Let's see it happen.
Yeah, and it goes pretty fast. So there we are.
Whoa.
Now we are going to wait for the email address, searching, order history, new order. Oh man, I can't talk that fast. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're done yet.
Great success. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the whole process. It goes really fast.
It goes real fast.
The first time I ran this, I was like, well, and
that's like 1,000 times faster than UI Flow desktop.
Yeah.
That's a lot faster.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I saw this, and yeah. So now I can just select OK, and I can close down the app, of course. Just to show you, I want to close the window at the end, of course. So let's try that as well, and then run that one as well.
All right, here we go.
So,
and the search.
I'm not even going to try to keep up.
Input new order, input note, and done. Great success.
And the app is closed.
And close the app. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it.
So that's it. That's the demo I wanted to show you. So cool. What do you think of it?
I think that's awesome, man. This is a great introduction, and I think, you showed us how to logically think about this tool, which I think is the most important part. I think getting to see how to go and build that function library and then connect your functions and processes to that, that's gold. That's the best part of this 101, and the biggest thing that I think everyone should pay attention to. Because now if you want to use the tool, it doesn't matter what your application is. You now have those pieces, those foundational pieces to go and actually build a WinAutomation.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Laskewitz, man, thanks again so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Yo, my pleasure. And you guys watching, you know what to do. Laskewitz has a brand new YouTube channel that he has been pumping out content onto like crazy. If you want to learn more about WinAutomation, if you want to learn about approvals, adaptive cards, the word connector, all sorts of stuff, Laskewitz has a ton of material on his channel where he's doing this every single week. So be sure and go and check him out and say thanks for coming and hanging out with us here on my channel today, just like I'm about to say. Thanks, bro.
Great success.
Great success. All right, you guys know what to do. Check out those links in the description. Click that like, click that subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any more videos. Much love from me, and I'll see you in the next one.